Hey guys, so we have this training today to kind of just talk about Intercept and learn about Intercept from youth villages directly. And then after their presentation, I'm going to come in and kind of focus it on how we can implement it within DCS and all the different families we're working with. So with that being said, my name is Catherine. I am the prevention consultant for Smoky Mountain region, hence the beautiful mountains in the background. And I'm going to let Danielle and Eric introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Eric Herring. I'm the Youth Villages Program Representative Manager for the state of Tennessee. I oversee all of the program representatives that help with all the pre-services regarding getting Intercept or our services in place. So we do a lot of the front work to help families and community partners overcome barriers to getting Intercept and services in place.
Hello, everyone. I'm Danielle Stano. I'm the Program Representative Supervisor over in East, so offices of Johnson City, Morristown, Knoxville, and Chattanooga. Pretty much the same thing that Eric's doing, just a smaller caseload, overseeing the program representatives within those regions.
And I will be over the slides today. So Eric, Danielle, you guys ready?
Yes, ma'am. If you want to go ahead and get started, we can start it. Youth Villages is a nonprofit organization that started in the 80s as a residential, and then in the 90s started as a in-home service provider. And so we're a nonprofit organization that has over 4,200 employees nationwide. We have service locations across 26 states in the District of Columbia with 100 locations. We also provide services through Intercept, LifeSet, but partner agencies as well. You can see here on the map that we have those 26 states. In red, those are our direct services. And so like Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, those are going to be our direct services where we're providing Intercept, LifeSet, some type of direct service. The greenish are more of our partners where it's implemented through partners with contracts. And then Ohio and Louisiana are their own thing because we actually have direct services and partnerships with people providers to provide Intercept, LifeSet, and things of that nature in all of those states. We just recently added Arizona as the 26th state where we're providing LifeSet services, and so we're continuing to grow with the FFPSA grants and everything else. That it's doing really well. As far as Tennessee as a whole, Tennessee's footprint, we have 13 offices across the state of Tennessee that focus on Intercept. And so when we're talking about FFPSA funding and services that are through the clearinghouse, the main one is going to be our Intercept services, which Danielle will talk about shortly. But as far as what we look like in the state of Tennessee, we have 25 locations, but the 13 that I want to focus on are on this screen. Those are our 13 offices across the state. Intercept serves all of Tennessee, all 95 counties. So if it is in the state of Tennessee, if it is in the territory of Tennessee, we can serve that family. We have more than 1,800 employees statewide. And as you can see, we operate a full continuum of services from residential, group homes, therapeutic foster care, foster parent training, LifeSet, transitional use, extension of foster care. Our home headquarters is based in Memphis, but we have, like I said, those 13 offices, and each of those 13 offices, we have at least one program representative to help community partners, families identify the most appropriate service for them through youth villages. And if we can't find anything through youth villages, then those program representatives will help those families find things outside of youth villages, like individual therapy, medication management, things that may be helpful overall. And then, so as I had mentioned, the Tennessee It's where youth villages started, and that's where we have a lot of our services. I think a lot of you may be familiar that youth villages has 75% to 80% of the state with crisis stabilization services. We offer MST through DCS contract as well. LifeSet is throughout the state. We've started Memphis Allies that are focusing on gun violence within Memphis that has had a lot of success in reducing gun violence. But as far as what we're looking at today is the Intercept program. And so when we're talking about Intercept, it is the program that was identified as being well supported through the Title IV Prevention Clearinghouse services. And that is what Danielle is about to talk to you more on the front line of what Intercept is, who we serve, and how those services are provided to the family. So I'll let Danielle take over and talk through Intercept and what that looks like.
Thank you, Eric. All right, let's get down to the nitty-gritty of Intercept. So just to boil it down, our goal is to keep families together. And the Intercept program is such a great program to make that happen. And so we're working with families to keep them out of custody together. So working with families as well to keep them from residential programs and hospitalizations, preparing the kids from coming home from hospitals and residential treatment centers. Let's see. So thank you. Doing this, if we talk a little bit about prevention, diversion, and reunification, it's kind of like what I had just said. So we're working on preventing kids from coming into state's custody. Diversion, where we're diverting children from hospitals or residential treatment facilities. Reunification, bringing kids home from the state's custody and working with families during this transition, which makes it very, very unique because I genuinely think that bringing kids home during that transition, being able to work with families even prior to the kids coming home is so crucial and important. And let's see. Oh, we're going straight there. You can go back one, it's okay. Thank you. Eric kind of talked a little bit about funding, but funding through the DCS pilot, 10 Care, which is the insurance side of things, and then TANF and 2Gen grant funded through DHS. We're providing intensive in-home services for not just, I think that the stereotypical assumption is that we're just working with kids from 10 years old or to 16 years old. But the truth is we work from 0 to 17, which is incredible. And these are all kids that are at risk of removal from home or returning home from a following placement.
And Danielle, if I may, that's what's so important about the DCS contract and the FFPSA funding that we have. That allows us to serve kids that we may not otherwise be able to serve through insurance. And as Danielle was talking about prevention reunification services, that gives DCS a really good opportunity to put services in place when kids may be in residential facilities and have us help focus on the parenting issues or the issues that the parents may be having. Or maybe it's not the child's behaviors at all that are placing them at risk. Maybe it's a newborn child or a 6-month-old child that doesn't have those behaviors that insurance wouldn't look at and approve for insurance funding. And that's why the DCS contract is so critical, because we're able to get those services in place with kids and families that we may not otherwise have been able to get into place, and prevent those kids from unnecessarily coming into custody and be that guide or be that catch-all before those families get too far downstream to where those kids are coming into custody. So I know that we're here to talk about FFPSA, so I just really wanted to highlight that, especially with having an open DCS case, it gives us a lot more options and flexibility in order to be able to keep cases open longer, identify kids and families that are struggling, and reduce the possibility of going in custody or residential or something along those lines.
Thank you. I just want to talk quickly about the referral process. I think that the the referral process is extremely easy with youth villages. We're the only place around that has program representatives who specifically work with the providers to answer questions, and to be there for them through that entire referral process. So yes, anyone can have an online referral process, which we do have, and it's easy to use. But I think having that program representative there to help that referral process is just taking it a step above. So kind of like we stated before, yes, we have an online portal where we can fill out referrals online, and anyone can go on here to do it. So to talk a little bit more in detail about it, when we get that referral from either a provider or an online referral, we're going to call that family within 24 hours, and we're going to assess the needs of that family. We want to know what is going on with the family and what's going to work with them specifically, and if they would benefit from Intercept services. And like Eric had stated before, if they don't fit and they're not going to benefit from our services, we're going to help them. We're not just going to say bye. We're going to help them through that process and help them refer somewhere else. We're not just going to give them names and say, okay, you can go here, you can go here. If the family wants to do it on their own, great. But if they want help, we're going to go that extra step and we're going to help them get to where they need to be. Additionally, within that 24-hour period, we're also going to be contacting who referred that family to us. We understand that the providers are trusting these families that they're working with us. And so we're going to keep you updated along the entire process. And we're going to keep an easy streamline of connectivity and give you updates on the family as the process goes. When we first talk to the family, when we admit the family, when we complete assessments with the family.
Danielle, you may get to this, so I'm just going to make you aware there's a question in the chat or some clarification. You may get to this on, but they were just asking for maybe a little more detail on how you would work with the family as a whole. So you may get to that as you progress through. I just wanted to make you aware.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So yes, I kind of will get into that. And if I don't clarify it with the stuff that I'm coming up on, just put it in the chat again and I will gladly answer, okay? All right, so key model elements. It's like I was stating before, like Eric had stated before, that we are serving infants to age 18. It leaves us open and able to work with parents on parenting needs, like Eric had said, for those children who don't meet typical treatment model. So like Eric had stated again, 6-month-olds, we can work heavily with the parents on parenting skills and parenting needs. All of our family intervention specialists have a low caseload, and this is proven to help reduce the risk of out-of-home placement. Their time and energy can focus on those 4 to 6 families they see on average. And we also have the on-call services 24/7, and people who go out to these homes during those moments are the family intervention specialists and not just some random on-call person. We use evidence-based, and this is the part where I'm hoping that I'm going to answer your question. We use an evidence-based system called GuideTree, which includes hundreds of interventions. We can then cater to specific individuals in their individualized treatment plan, excuse me. So I just kind of want to give a little example, and I think Eric's going to talk a little bit about this, but our interventions aid in the following, but not limited to physical aggression, birth to 5 issues, so developmental disabilities, perinatal needs, trauma symptoms, unmet milestones, caregiver mental health needs, chronic caregiver stress, intimate partner violence, low support for caregivers, poor family attachments, problem solving, meeting basic needs, depression, anxiety, the typical ones, financial literacy needs, housing instability, whether a kiddo is struggling with suicidal behaviors or hurting themselves, truancy and poor academic performance, and even victims of commercial sexual exploitation. The list, it goes on, but it gives you a wide range, and that's what I was hoping to do, of interventions and treatment and referral issues we can actually work with. So again, within those, the FIS is carrying an average caseload of 4 to 6 families. They work with those families 3 times a week for 120 minutes at a time, implementing those individualized treatment plan interventions and meeting the family and the youth where they are at in life. We're able to customize treatment interventions to meet the needs of the family and the youth. I think Eric in a minute is going to discuss more about the codified program model to determine the best course of treatment for youth and the family. So I can pass it on to Eric, unless I didn't answer those questions about what we specifically do.
Serena just put that she can't see the PowerPoint. Is anyone else having an issue seeing the PowerPoint?
So,
I can
everybody
see it
else
fine.
can see it. Okay. I just wanted to make sure before we moved on. We
I
did
think
have
I did-
another question. Sorry, Eric. We did have a question. Someone had asked if the there needed to be a diagnosis for services.
So that's the great thing about the contract and the FFPSA funding through DCS. No, they don't. They don't have to have any less intense services. They don't have to have a diagnosis. They don't have to have any of that. As long as there is an open DCS case and DCS is willing to stay open during the time that Youth Villages is providing services to that family, and we can show that that family is, or that child is at risk at some point, whether it's 30 days from now or 6 months from now, if interventions aren't placed into, then no, they don't. Now, for insurance funded cases, yes, they do have to have less intense services. They do have to have a diagnosis. But again, that's why, and Danielle did a very, very good job, but that's why I wanted to highlight that this is a very unique contract that we have with DCS and the FFPSA funding, because it allows us to serve kids and families that may not otherwise be able to be served. Those kids that have that are 6 months old that can't be diagnosed, or kids that are 3 that may be showing signs of autism spectrum diagnosis or something along those lines, but they're too young to be diagnosed. But we can get in there with DCS and help them. And to build off of what Danielle was saying is we are a multi-systemic approach. We are going to work with the family. We're going to work with DCS, the schools. We are going to get intake from everybody we possibly can to identify how we can best help that child, how we can best help that family. Everybody here, from DCS to schools to Uncle Bob, their input is helpful in order to identify what's going on with that family, what's going on with that child, so that we can go identify clinical interventions to reduce the behaviors that are taking place. And so, Youth Villages is called Youth Villages. And one of the reasons why is because sometimes it does take a village to get all of the information in order to help a child or a family get through what they're going through. And so that's why I know I may be harping on it, but that's why it's so important that this DCS contract and the 550 slots that we have across the state, it's unique that we can serve families. We can keep kids out of custody. We can get to them before it's too late and a judge is putting them into custody and things of that nature. And as our frontline staff, as our family intervention specialists are working with those families, they're meeting with licensed program experts once a week, and they're doing treatment plans on families every other week. And this is where Guidetree comes in. Guidetree is very unique and specific to Youth Villages. It is something that Youth Villages created. You can see on the screen that the Guidetree helps do the case conceptualization. It gives online clinical tools and resources, and it helps in the clinical process. We don't want staff to feel like they have to go in and Pinterest things or Google things. That's never the best way to help a kid and family. And so with Guidetree, we give our staff an ability to go through 34 referral issues. And Danielle talked about some of that: physical aggression, non-suicidal self-injurious behavior, homicidal ideations, things of that nature. And so an FIS can go in and look at these 34 referral issues and over 230 interventions. And all of these are evidence-based. We have a dedicated staff of licensed program experts who have their license, and they may have an LCSW or LMFT or something along those lines, but they're going through and finding the most cutting edge interventions that they can. And Guidetree gives the family intervention specialist a step-by-step walkthrough of how to implement, taking into account cultural considerations, taking into account maybe they're non-English speaking. So with these 230 interventions and 712 worksheets, we can help mold how that FIS is going to work with that family. And again, it is a wide variety of things. It does not just have to be the child's behaviors. It can be parental concerns. It can be housing and financial stability. I know that when I was an FIS in Frontline, one of the things that I do with a lot of families is budgeting and financial success to help make sure that they could pay for things. That's not necessarily a child's behavior, but that's going to be key in making sure that that family is able to stay in their home in that community because they're able to live within their means. And so Guide Tree is an important part of what we do. And it's also one of the reasons why Intercept in and of itself is an evidence-based program. It has gone through 3 different studies through Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago that has shown that it has reduced the risk of out-of-home placement or has brought children and kids home back from placement. And so the first study showed that Intercept reduced the odds of out-of-home placement by 53% following the first maltreatment investigation. And these are quasi studies that were done. And the second one showed that Intercept reduced the odds of out-of-home placement by 37% following a maltreatment investigation. And then compared to other comparison groups, the odds of achieving permanency with Intercept were 24% higher when Intercept was in with families and kids. So that's why we want to make sure, and that's why we were identified as well supported by the clearinghouse, because we are shown to reduce the risk of going into custody or bringing those kids home faster. And I see in the chat that they're asking if we can work with a private insurance. Again, that's why we have this contract with DCS. As long as one of the main requirements of having an open case when DCS is involved is that DCS has an open case. As long as DCS identifies that a kid or family needs Intercept services and they're willing to keep their case open, we can serve. The family doesn't have to have insurance. They can have private insurance. Their insurance doesn't matter as long as DCS is going to be maintained in that home. Who we serve, as talked about, our age range is typically 0 to 18. You can see that there's a lot of the presenting issues range from abuse or neglect to legal issues. You can see here the different genders and races that we serve. We serve a multitude of different folks across the spectrum. Overall, our outcomes, 94% of the families are satisfied with Intercept services. We have a dedicated research team that follows up with families at 6 months and a year to identify how those kids and those families are doing. So they call the families, they identify, and at discharge, about 12 months after discharge, we're seeing that families are still living at home independently. Less than 1% are in foster care. Less than 1% are in a correctional facility. And so our outcomes show that 1 year past discharge, 91% are still living with family, 98 are still in school or graduated, and that 93 had no trouble with the law. So again, this goes back to the studies that were shown and the outcomes that we gather with our research team. And so that's where we'll stop. Yeah, I'm more than happy to take any questions about Intercept before we move forward, or if anybody has any questions. And if you don't, then I'll hand it over to, I believe, Catherine at this point, and she can take over.
Do we have any other questions for East Villages and over Intercept while we still have them right here on these slides? Okay. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate all of that information. So like I said at the beginning, my name is Catherine Barber, and I am a prevention consultant for Smoky region. But before this role, I worked with DCS for 7 years in South Central, Smoky, and Davidson County between CPS and FSS. So I understand what you guys are doing every day, and I understand what we may or may not know about Intercept. And so I want to share a story of where I started to shift my ideas on Intercept a little differently, and when I started seeing all of the extra support they really could give with the different families we served. So when I was a FSSTL, I had a frontline professional that was working with a single mother with 3 children under the age of 4. And while she didn't need direct parenting classes, there was a concern for just keeping up with all the appointments going on, kind of understanding like all the bills that need to be paid. And she was a young mother, so just kind of wanting to educate her on the role that she was going to play with these young children. So the frontline professional brought up the idea of Intercept. And when she did, I was a little taken back because my understanding was it was for 12-year-olds and older who were having some behavioral problems or wasn't going to school. And so I was like, I don't know how Intercept can help this. But she was able to explain to me that Intercept can come in and provide her with support, help her maintain all the appointments coming up. And also during this time, there was a concern that one of the children was possibly autism. So there was testing and appointments coming up with their TEIS worker. And so she just really wanted extra support for the mom. So we were able to find out that through the CSR partnership, the contract that Intercept has already talked about, that this family was able to get in right away and didn't have to have an assessment done, didn't have to go through the insurance hoops. So that was really helpful. During this case, the children actually had to go over to the father's home and switch custody. And Youth Villages was such a help during all this because they knew all the appointments coming up. They were able to stabilize and maintain the children and also help support dad as he had no children in his home before then taking on these 3 children. So Youth Villages really did help us when we were working with that family and helped just be there and meet the needs every day for them while DCS was doing the steps that they were doing. So I want to bring focus and just kind of quickly go over the roles that the family interventionists play with Youth Villages, our FSS workers, and our CPS workers. And I know that we have a lot of foster care workers on here today. And while we are trying to shift the narrative and trying to get Youth Villages in our non-custodial cases, I do see you guys, and I promise that I will make this come back to you guys and bring focus to you as well, because you guys are doing important work. So like Eric and Danielle had talked about earlier, some of the roles that the Youth Villages worker or the family intervention specialist is doing is completing the safety and supervision planning with the family. They're meeting with them 3 times a week. They're creating individual and safety plans and treatment plans routinely. Weekly conferencing with their licensed program expert, treatment team meetings within Youth Villages. They're completing their monthly documentation, and then they're also doing care coordination between schools, families, other providers, and their DCS partners as well with the family weekly. So FSS, just to highlight real quick what you guys are doing. I know you guys know what you're doing, but I want to bring the whole picture together. What you guys have going on is that you have monthly engagement with your parents or custodians. You have a monthly home visit if the fast is moderate. You have, if the fast is intensive, you have 2 visits monthly. One of them has to be in the home. You're completing that global assessment, which is your fast, within 30 days, and your reassessment fast after 90. You're completing the non-custodial permanency plan within 30 days, and you're also staffing with leadership, any court involvement, and also communicating with the family. CPS. So you guys are a little bit different. Of course, you guys are coming in, you're seeing the alleged child victim once every calendar month. You're completing that initial home visit. You're talking to both parents and children and their custodians. You're interviewing the adults and children in the household if you're granted that permission. You too are completing that global assessment, which is the FAST. You're doing the reassessment FAST within 90 days. You're completing your NCPP or your non-custodial plan within 30 days. And you're also talking to family collaterals, completing the genogram, reviewing family history, if that's DCS, legal, criminal, or medical, and then setting up any extra additional support with your education specialist, your nurse, safety nurse, a SIPIT review or forensic interview. And then you're also classifying the case and setting it up for transfer if that's what's necessary. So I say all that because what I want to focus on is that the only way to make Youth Villages work is that we have communication with everyone. And so while you guys are able to see the different roles that everyone plays for this family, what comes together is that communication with everyone so that the family is able to support each other and move forward and meet the needs and where they're at. And that only happens with that communication. So Youth Villages mentioned earlier their study that was done that showed them to be well supported. And through that study, what showed was that the likelihood of DCS placement did decrease if it was implemented as soon as the assessment was completed or the investigation. So what that means is that the program is working. However, we need to shift the narrative a little bit and begin that intervention with Intercept at a younger age. Once we are meeting the family, maybe for the first time, maybe they don't have DCS history before. And so with Youth Villages being an evidence-based program, putting it in a prevention lens is where we're really going to see that shift in it. So that being said, has anyone used Intercept with younger children before? Let me know in the chat. Okay, see, no. Okay, cool, Janet. Cool, Michaela. All right, so I'm seeing some no's, I'm seeing some yeses, and that's why we wanted to kind of bring this up to you guys today. I'm not here to recreate the wheel. I'm here to just bring a new perspective into something we already have and just support us even more. So as we learned from Youth Villages about the Intercept program, they have a unique program that fits all of the family's needs. Intercept can work with children 0 to 17 with that CSR partnership and the contract that they were talking about. Studies show best that services work sooner rather than later. So what if we started utilizing it at a younger age instead of waiting till they're 12 to 17-year-olds? What if we were able to implement it earlier so that not only are we benefiting the children, but also benefiting the parents that are just now starting on their parenthood journey? What if we had a case where an immediate protection agreement, the IPA, was for a child of 2 and 8 that are being placed with their grandmother, and the only reason they were removed was because of parent substance abuse. But there are concerns that grandma hasn't parented in 20 years. We have one child that's in elementary school, and so maybe some education on social media, school, and any other relevant parenting education in 2020 might be helpful. By implementing Intercept, we can educate the grandma, help her with the children, and help that process of transitioning over to her home and help give them some extra support. Often DCS assumes all the responsibility in a removal, but that doesn't have to be the case. We can work with our providers and help support these families even when traumatic times are happening. So, like mentioned before, Intercept is in all 95 counties. And why is that important for you all to know? Well, by having Intercept in all 95 counties, that means we're serving all of the families of Tennessee. We can go rural all the way to urban. And that also means that Tennessee does have an evidence-based program within the state that can meet any needs. Also, if we start a case with FSS and then maybe foster care does have to step in, that shows that we can continue that maybe where the child goes. So just want to really highlight here that it is in all 95 counties. So looking at children 1 to 5, that might not be many high-risk behaviors. However, there could still be a need for parenting skills, budgeting skills, or life skills. If Intercept can address those from the beginning, then those skills can be instilled in the family. And when times get harder or as the children grow up, then they already have a backing and support of services back when they were beginning. Just think how impactful it will be for a child if we help implement services while they're still young, and that can support and build skills. Some of the families we work with are parents that were also in foster care themselves and don't have the family supports that you normally need when you are a new parent. And as we review those complex cases, remember that this has been a longer road for a lot of these families we're working with, and we're here to stop the revolving door and trying to stop the cycle and be in a more preventative lens. I have another little story for you that I want to bring in another perspective with Intercept. There was an aunt who took 2 boys in, and when they came into her home, they were the ages of 3 and 5. When the younger child turned 11, they started to have significant behavior issues with aggression. And that's when Intercept did come into the home. the aunt finally had to ask DCS to take the child into custody because she could no longer care for him due to safety issues in the home. However, when the children were first placed in her home, she was not really given full explanation of the trauma that they faced and how maybe they would experience trauma later on that would come out in different behaviors. The children were in therapy, but other than that, she was not explained what ACEs were. She was not explained any of that information. So as they grew up, they started to have some issues. And when Intercept did get in the home, she did tell us how much she loved Intercept and how supported she felt by it. And she had wished that Intercept could have come in the home sooner because she thinks that it could have had a better outcome for them if it had just been at a different time and place in their story. So let's bring this all together. How do we make Intercept be that amazing program that they've talked about? For Intercept to be tailored to the family's needs, having a quality FAST or even a CANS is an excellent way for youth villages to understand the families that we're working with and ensure that services meet their needs. By scoring the FAST or CANS through a lens of a protective factor, ensuring that the family's history is a part of it, youth villages has that global assessment that they need to base their services on. We want to see these families succeed and to do well for themselves. Filling out that FAST and CANS with the family ensures that they are a part of the assessment and helps them see how youth villages can meet their needs. This also can go with when we also do a FAST, we can also create a quality non-custodial permanency plan, which then just brings the whole picture together within the TFAC system. The effectiveness of youth villages is directly tied to the quality of information they receive. DCS plays a crucial role in ensuring that youth villages has the necessary information to do their interventions for the family. As we begin to work with families, it's important to emphasize that communication collaboration with DCS and youth villages is an ongoing process, not a one-time thing. This ensures that we're working towards the same goal and meeting the family's needs. So that's ensuring that maybe youth villages get some new information this week and they're calling DCS to let them know, or vice versa. Maybe DCS was at court and youth villages wasn't, and letting them know what judge said or what was said in a CFTM that they might have not made. It's a collaborative approach here, and that's the only way that we're going to be able to help these families. And like I said before, I'm not trying to recreate the wheel for you guys. You guys already are doing a lot of work, but as shown already, FAST, CANS, assessments, those are all tasks that you already have to do. So let's just be smarter about it and not work harder. So I'm not here to teach about ACEs at all today, but I kind of want to bring it all together here. And so ACEs, or the adverse childhood experiences, are when children have a genetic makeup that determines their response to stress. For example, a child born with prenatal care and no exposure to substance has a different genetic makeup than a mother who has received prenatal care and who has not received prenatal care and was abusing substance while pregnant. Due to the genetic makeup, each child reacts to childhood experiences a little differently. When an ACE happens to a child who has already experienced trauma in the past, it can shift that genetic makeup and cause a child to be affected by the trauma, either mentally, emotionally, or physically later on in life. However, we also have positive childhood experiences, which is the PCEs. And these help create better experiences for children to be able to handle the trauma they face. But that's all when we bring in the prevention and interventions through evidence-based programs. So if we're able to use Intercept and place it in at a beginning age and help families learn about PCEs or help create that for their families, we're already setting up the road ahead better for them. So, all that to be said, I really just brought this training to you guys today because I too was in the field with you guys. I remember thinking that youth villages was just this one box and that Intercept could only do one thing. But I really hope that today you guys can see that in your CPS or FSS case, if it's just a young mom with 2 kids that has it together but could use some support, let's see if that's a way to help them. Or if it's a mom being reunified with her kids and she really doesn't want to interact with DCS again, she worked hard, she completed her plan and got her kids back, maybe youth villages can help stabilize that transition from DCS care back to her care. Youth villages in this contract with DCS is a great program, and we bypass a lot of red tape with insurance. And so I just hope that you guys are able to take this information today and take it back to your families and your cases and see how it can help you guys in the long run. So I appreciate you guys listening to me. If you guys could just take a moment and complete the end of the training survey, that would be great. I'm going to mute myself. And if you guys have any more questions or comments, please take yourself off mute or put it in chat. And Sharina, I have just one more slide just to explain who we are. And then I know you have your spiel as well. Great. I'm glad you guys were able to hear stuff from it today. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate your questions today, Mary, a lot. Thanks, Tiffany. So real quick, you've heard a little bit about me from Smoky Mountain region. There are 12 of us in the state of Tennessee right now with the prevention consultants, and we are here to support you in any way. If that's, helping prep with the CFTM or helping look over cases, feel free to scan this code and you can find out who your representative is in your region, because we do cover all 12 regions at this point. All right, Serena, I'm going to give it back over to you, ma'am. Oh, Tiffany, for the trainer, you can do Catherine Barber.
Awesome. Yes, and you can do Catherine Barber, and then you will see Eric and Danielle are also an option in one of those trainer options. So thanks so much. Thanks so much for our partners at Youth Villages and at UT Swarps. This is a great presentation. I'm super happy to hear and realize that we can make referrals for younger children. I think that's amazing, and potentially something underutilized, and so hopefully something we can change with spreading this information through webinars and other communications. So, but you are out there in the regions, in the thick of everything. Please share this information with your coworkers and provide them with information about all of these communications and webinars, so that we can get the information to you to support you in all of your prevention efforts.
Hey, Serena, I was going to add, we do have another training this month on November 18th, 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern, on parent-child interaction therapy, and kind of going in deep about what that is, as that's another evidence-based program that is in majority of the state, but we'll go dive deeper into that at the end of this month.
Thank you so much. Yes, please join us for that. I'm going to see if I can add that. I usually send an email out tomorrow or the next day, and I will add that flyer so that you can register for the November 18th session. I wish I could put it in there now, but that's okay. Yes, so let me know if you have any trouble with the link. Please complete that to get your training credit here at DCS, or receive a certificate in your email box from DCS. Do we have any other questions today? All right. Well, if you have any more questions, we have a few more minutes here, and that is great. Also, let me know if you have any trouble with the training credit link. And if you